I'm here today with Dr. Luyaluka again for our second show in our three-part series. And today we're going to be discussing African sacred science. So welcome, Dr. Luyaluka.
Thank you.
And also, just to let our audience know that there is a slight delay. Dr. Luyaluka is speaking to us direct from the Congo. So there is a slight delay. So bear with us while we try to communicate as clearly as we can to you. But we're going to go straight in. So, Dr. Luyaluka, I know you have a book that actually addresses the subject that we're going to be discussing today. Your book titled The Scientificity, I still can't say that word, of African Traditional Knowledge. I must say I haven't completed the book. I've gone through it. I haven't read as much as I was hoping to before today's interview, but we're still going to go in hard. So if we want to start by, yes, Dr. Luyaluka, you can introduce the subject for us.
Yes, we are going especially to speak about the scientificity of African spiritual thoughts. So we have circumscribed this subject. It is about the spiritual thought that we are going to speak, which means the scientificity of African traditional religion. So we are going to demonstrate that that religion is a science. Can I go on?
Yes, you can.
To speak of religion as a science seems awkward to many ears. This is the case because we have been accustomed to see religion as a belief. The Webster Collegiate Dictionary, in its 1977 edition, describes religion as a system of beliefs held with faith. You agree with me that the author alludes to religion as perceived in the West. So in the West, in the Western civilization, religion is perceived as being essentially a belief. When in the 6th century before Christian era, the Persian king invaded ancient Egypt, they gave the opportunity to inquisitive Grecian students to go and study in Egypt. Those students, when they went into Egypt, they were eager to learn the greatest science of the Egyptian. Now, the greatest science of the Egyptian was not mathematics, was not astronomy, was not human knowledge. It was their religion. This was the backbone of their culture. So, accepting those students, those inquisitive foreigners in the school, the Egyptians were not willing to let them learn the greatest of the science, that is their religion. So they used all kind of schemata in order to keep them away from that religion. For example, they will tell them that they have first to master human sciences in order to be eligible, qualified to learn the science of science. So we are told by Sheikh Antariop that Pythagoras spent about 20 years studying human sciences in order to be eligible to study the greatest of the Egyptian science. So none of those students became qualified. They never learned that. However, they did learn from the Egyptian that their religion was scientific, and that contrary to the religion of Greece, which was a mere belief, mere polytheistic belief, the religion of Egypt was a science, even an exact science. We now know that ancient Egypt, Sumer, and Nubia shared the same religion. This is explained by the absence of proselytism among them. We never learned that the Egyptian went to teach the Nubian. No, they belong to the same religion. When the Nubian pharaoh Shabaka discovered a stone in Egypt carrying an inscription about theology, he called that teaching the teaching of his ancestors, which means that Nubia and Egypt share the same religion. Moreover, each nation that was conquered by the Egyptian or by the Sumerian saw its gods included in the pantheon of divinity. So they shared the same religion. And this means that the original form of African traditional religion is a science, an exact science. However, this begs the question of the demonstration of this affirmation. Thanks to a discovery made by Nzila Lowa is a modern academy of African spirituality, and it comprises two branches, an academic research branch called Institut des Sciences Animiques and an initiatory branch called also Nzila Lowa. So thanks to the research of the Institut des Sciences Animiques, we can prove scientifically today that African traditional religion in its original trend is an exact science. And this we can do thanks to a cosmological argument. Now, a cosmological argument is an argument that enables one to demonstrate the existence of the creator of this universe. This is how it is used in the West. Since Plato, it enabled the theologian, it enables the philosophers to demonstrate the existence of the creator of this temporal universe. And that creator is taken to be the Most High God. And it stops there. So the cosmological argument we are going to use is a particular one. It doesn't only demonstrate the existence of the creator, but it extends to all the essential doctrine of the African traditional religion as it was taught in the time of ancient Egypt, Nubia, and Sumer. And that scientific religion has been kept intact in BaKongo, which is the Congo religion. The cosmological argument starts from the presence of the cosmos to prove the existence of the cause of that cosmos. So, however, the Kemetic cosmological argument, which is the one we are going to use, the Kemetic cosmological argument starts from the fact that these temporal universe include individualities. I'm an individual being, you are an individual being, so we are in an individual we are individualities in the temporal universe. So this is the first premises, the existence of individualities. The second premises is the law of causality, which says that to any effect corresponds a cause which is antecedent and adequate. Now, I can introduce the Kennedy cosmological argument this way. You are an individual being, I'm an individual being, and we abide in this temporal universe, which means that this temporal universe is an aggregate of individuality. Therefore, it is an individual entity. Since this temporal universe is an individual entity, its creator must be also an individual entity because he is the creator, which is identified with an individual universe, temporal universe. Now, I'm going to use an hypothesis just for the sake of concision. Actually, it is not indispensable. So we are going to take this hypothesis. Every creation exists in its creator. If we take the creator of this temporal universe, since that creator is an individual being, there might be other creators who are at least potentially causative. They might have not yet created their universe, but they exist. Now, if we take the sum total of all these potential and manifest creators, we have a being who is the greatest possible being. Why? Because any creation will exist in its creator, and that creator exists in that greatest possible being. Now, this greatest possible being is what is called in other sphere God. In BaKongo, he is called Nzambi Ampungu Tulendo. The ancient Egyptian used to call him the great one, or the one Lord. The Sumerian used to call him Anu or An. So we have the supreme being, and this supreme being, as the greatest possible being, must be transcendent, indivisible, immutable at least. Because if he were not, then there might be a principle of his divisibility, a principle of his mutability, and that principle must be greater than him according to the law of causality. But we know that he is the greatest possible being, so there cannot be a principle greater than him. So God, Zambia Mpungu Tulendo, is transcendent, he is indivisible, he is immutable. When we say that God is transcendent, it means that he knows no evil. If Nzambiampungu Tulendo knew evil, then evil and good will be in him infinite because he is indivisible. They will be essential in him, and he will be infinitely good and infinitely bad, which is a violation of the law of harmony, of non-contradiction. So God being transcendent means that he is not cognizant of evil. The consequence of this transcendence of Nzambia Mpungu Tulendo is that prayers were not directly addressed to him. Prayer, the highest God to whom prayer were addressed is the Creator. The Creator who in Bukongo is called Mumba Loa. Mumba Loa, and Kai in Sumer, or Atom in ancient Egypt. Now, Due to the divisibility of God and divisibility of God, we know that every creator expressed an individuality included in the Most High. Now, the Most High is indivisible. This means that every creator or every child of God, God being perceived as male and female, father, mother, be it in ancient Egypt, in Sumer, or in BaKongo, gods are always perceived as being male and female. So we call God father, mother, and the creators are his children. So since God is indivisible, every children of God, every creator expresses the fullness of the divine being, but in an individual manner. Let's call this fullness the Logos. So we have three entities. We have Zambia Tulendo, the Most High God. We have Mumba Loa, the Creator, and we have the Logos. At the celestial level, the Logos is called Ptah in ancient Egypt, Enlil in Sumer, and Mpinanza in BaKongo. The Logos is called Mpinanza in BaKongo. But at the temporal level in BaKongo, the Logos is called it depends on the academic it depends on the initiatory school. In the civil initiatory school, he was called Kimaungu. In the divine initiatory school, it was Kimalungila. And in the martial initiatory school, it was Kitafu Ma Luangu. So we understand that the Logos is the manifestation of the fullness of the divinity in the child of God. But we know that in Egypt, Horus was understood as being in the heart, in the one who abides in the body. So here, Horus is clearly defined as being the divinity in the human being. So he is the Logos at the temporal level. At the celestial level, it is Ptah. The manifestation of Ptah at the temporal level is Horus. Now, if we take the children of God around any one of them, these children of God constitute a collective child of God. And this child of God manifests also the Logos. So we come to the conclusion that the Logos have a double nature. The Logos is the manifestation of the fullness of God in the child of God, but he is also the manifestation of the fullness of God around the child of God, any child of God. So we have that double manifestation, which is very important. We are going to see this. It has an ethical implication because that fullness of divinity, if the child of God constitutes the true nature of the child of God. So this means that the child of God is in reality the good which is expressed in him, and that is equal with the good which is expressed around him. In other words, the child of God is the good he is spiritually conscious in him, but also the good he is spiritually conscious around him. This means that his concern for his goodness must be seen through his concern for his surrounding. And this is very important because it is the principle of Ubuntu, which is fundamental to the African culture. Many people used to say that Ubuntu is merely a philosophy and it is a secular humanitarian principle. I say no. It is a divine principle which can be demonstrated as I have done. So the question now is, what is the nature of the temporal universe? Because we have learned that there is a Most High God who is Zambia Mpungu Tulendo. There are his children, or the creator, manifest or potential. Each child of God expresses the fullness of the glory of the Father. Thus, he is like a star, a sun. Therefore, in BaKongo, he is called Loa. Loa might recall to you the Loa of the voodoo in Louisiana or in Haiti. It is the same. It means the child of God has the manifestation of the fullness of the divinity. And Loa means he is like a sun. He is a sun, solar. In Kikongo, in plural, Loa becomes Baloa. But we are going to use the rendition of Louisiana or Haiti where we say Loas in plural. So we have seen that we have the God, the Most High, Damian Pungo Tulendo. We have the Loas, the children of God, and we have the Logos, with the manifestation of the fullness of God in the child of God and around the child of God. Now the question is, what is the nature of the temporal universe in comparison to God? Zambia Mpungu Tulendo. The answer is the temporal universe cannot be outside of Zambia Mpungu Tulendo because as the greatest possible reality being, Zambia Mpungu Tulendo is also the greatest possible reality. Now, if the temporal universe existed outside of him, then God plus the temporal universe will constitute a reality greater than God, which is impossible. So the temporal universe cannot exist outside of God, the greatest possible being. Can it be inside him? The answer is no. Because if the temporal universe were in Zambia Mpungu Tulendo, at the moment of creation, something in him will go from potentiality to manifest existence, which means God will have changed. Now we have seen that God is absolutely immutable. So the temporal universe is neither in God nor outside of him. But we know from hypothesis that the temporal universe is in the creator. Thus, we arrive to the deduction. The temporal universe is only a perception of the reality, a limited perception of the reality of the celestial realm, the realm of Daniel Pongutulendo, in the temporal consciousness of the creator. In other words, what appears to be a temporal universe is only an appearance of the reality of the celestial level. Remember, this is exactly the philosophy that was taught by Plato. That's what he was taught in Egypt, but he could not demonstrate this. We have demonstrated this thanks to the Kemetic cosmological argument. This is exactly what is sustained by the Yoruba of Nigeria. And this implies that the human being, the visible human being, or the visible muntu, the word muntu is the Kikongo for human being.